The February 8th meeting of the Haverford Township Planning Commission is called to order. Maggie, can you call the roll? Margie, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Shannon?
Present?
Ms. Dobbs? Here. Mr. Welch?
Present.
Mr. Capuzzi?
Present.
Mr. Fiordamondo?
Present.
Mr. Montresor?
Present.
Ms. Phillips?
Here.
Can we stand for the flag salute?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on the agenda is Jim Miller Holdings, LLC, preliminary final land development plan at 2224 and 2228 Haverford Road.
Good evening, thank you. My name's Carl Ewald. I'm here on behalf of Jim Miller. Mr. Miller can't make it tonight, but I do have Adam Powell here, who is our civil engineer, who's going to be helping us finish up this project. Mr. Powell.
Carl, are you an attorney representing the
Yes.
applicant?
Yes. Mr. Powell can walk you through the comment letter, but essentially, we are proposing to comply with all of the comments of your engineer.
Let me sneak in and see if this will work. No, this is the computer they provided. Good evening. My name is Adam Powell. I'm the civil engineer.
I'm sorry, Adam?
Adam Powell, Powell. Civil engineer practicing in Delaware County for now over 15 years. As Carl mentioned, this project is taking two parcels, properties, and reverse subdividing them into one lot, creating one parcel to allow the property owner to construct a second-story addition for office space. The site is located at Curricung Road and Haverford Road. I'm assuming you guys know it's basically at the intersection right across the street from the bowling alley. We did submit a set of plans in December and received a review letter in January from Pannoni. I do want to go through that, but I also want to do some handouts. Let's see. Let's do the letter first. So we did receive the letter. The letter has about 13 comments. As Carl mentioned, all of them are will comply, and most of them were addressed. So I just want to go through the comments that still need to be addressed, and to hopefully keep everybody on the same page. I kind of cheat, and I basically made a little summary sheet, and basically specifies will comply and what the items are. Concerning the zoning, one comment basically was dealing with parking. There are currently on the design plan 29 external parking spaces, and I believe, let's see, 29 and 37, 8 internal spaces, right? Yes. Per code, we need to do 34, so we meet the requirement, but we'll make sure that the table spells that out, so that we understand. So basically the uses are warehouse, garage, and the office upstairs. So again, on the site, there are 29 parking spaces that will be striped outside the building, and there will be 8 inside. But what I do want to do is hopefully, let's see, so comment 2 is addressed for A. B was addressed, C was addressed, D was addressed. E has to deal with parking stalls. So again, because this parking lot exists, we're basically just striping it to put the parking stalls where we believe they belong. We're going to put those concrete parking stops that you sort of see, actually, they're right outside. We will provide a detail for them. It's a standard detail. We can add that to the plan. And they'll be provided around the parking lot. Let's see, that was E. F is addressed, G is addressed. H has to deal with the 5 parking stalls that are located down in here. And what I'm going to do is hopefully, if you don't mind, hand out that. Or you want to plug that one in?
Can we plug in our computer to put it up, or?
What's the easiest way to get a PDF up there? Gotcha. I'm hoping this is an easy one.
Thank you.
So if everybody has the 11 by 17 and
Excuse me, Mr. Powell, I just want technical clarification. Does this paper map supersede something that's in the electronic packet we received? Or, in other words, a map that was provided previously?
correct, this is what we would be cleaning up to address the review letter.
Thank you.
So instead of saying I will, I just wanted to show you what we were proposing to do to meet these requirements.
Thank you for that
So as you
clarification.
can see on this exhibit, we now have the little parking bumper detail, which is that rectangle that basically says it's a parking bumper. The other thing we did is I relayed out the parking lot to get rid of all of the weird 16-foot wide aisles where your cars couldn't physically get in or out of. So as you can see for this comment, which is comment 2H, the 5 parking stalls that were down in that lower area that is fenced in is now going to 4. So, and I provided some striped areas so that way the car can get in, the car can get out, you can open up the doors, do things of that nature. There's some other changes we did throughout the parking lot. But the idea was I basically took the design and tried to modify it to allow easier access around the site and entrance and exits into these parking stalls. So let's see, that was H. I has to deal with handicap parking stalls. Originally, we only had 1 stall. The way the ADA is written, once you go over 25 parking stalls, you need a second one. So what we're doing is we're actually showing now 2 parking stalls for handicap. They're the ones with the little green guys. And we're also providing the 8-foot wide transfer zone for the van accessible. The way it works is even though you need 1, you got to have the van accessible. So that way, we're giving them that. We're also going to do the handicap parking signs there. What we do is we put them in a concrete bollard. So that way they'll be protected. So you're going to end up with a 3 or 4 foot tall painted yellow metal pole with a bollard, and then we put the sign right in it, so that way nobody can hit it. But all of the other parking stalls will have the parking bumpers. The other thing we did is we sort of cleaned up where the 7 along the neighboring property were. The original sketch, some of them you really couldn't get into. This basically allows full movement in and out of those parking stalls. So let's see, so we can go to 3. 3 had to deal with the loading zone. So what I'm doing is I'm basically showing a loading zone on the southeast corner of the building. There's a set of gates there. They're both 2 double wide gates, so the whole thing does open. There's an AC unit that's basically mounted on the side of the building that's going to go. So that parking lot, or that loading zone, I believe I drew it, I think it was like 30 by 10 or 30 by 12. That'll fit a normal box truck. These guys don't get tractor trailer deliveries. But if they do have a box truck, pickup truck, anything along those lines, they have the ability to use that. That way, they're not in the street, they're not in front of the building. But the thing is, in that whole corner down there, that's where the garage door is to get in and out. So if they got a tire guy that's got an F-150 to drop off tires or something, they can pull off the street on our property, get to the garage door, but the designated loading area is shown. Four has to do with the building itself and make sure that the architecturals for the second floor fit within the side yard setbacks. We do have a set of architectural plans. I'm gonna have to make him mad because they're not on this slide. But basically, the second floor is designed to fit within the setbacks. The reason I'm saying that is there are sections of this building, basically this whole section of the building back here on the first floor is over the setback line. The second floor, basically their second floor wall stops here. Same thing with this little triangle piece right here. So we are staying within the setbacks on the second floor for the building.
That was a requirement of the zoning hearing board's approval of the pre-existing non-conforming use change. Obviously, we're accepting that, and we'll add a note to the plan to reflect that so that it's on the record plan.
But
I guess you're glad they didn't make you chop that piece off.
Could you point to them again, please, Adam?
okay, so basically, this dotted line here is your rear yard setback line from your property line. And the existing building on the first floor extends into the side yard. When they went through zoning, one of the requirements is the new second floor addition can't cross that line. So basically, the second floor, and again, if you want to knock on the door and make them mad, I have the plans I can show you. The second floor wall stops here, so it doesn't extend over onto the, so this would just be the flat roof, or they would just have to transition from this roof to the new addition. But the second floor will end here, and there's a little piece right here. They got to do the same thing right there. So we will comply with number 4. Number 5, now we're going to the subdivision and land development requirements. A through E has been addressed. 5F has to deal with the signature blocks, which are basically, make sure it says commissioner, or, and I'll make sure it says township, make sure it says either approved by or recommended. It's cleanup. So that is a normal housekeeping item that we will address. Number 6 has to deal with monuments along property lines. Again, this is a rather interesting shaped building or property where you basically come to a point. There are some concrete walls. I know there's a concrete wall here. This is asphalt. This is asphalt. That's out in the street. I know we're required to put concrete monuments. We may have to work with the township engineer to see if we can come up with an alternative where we physically can't put one in the ground.
Yeah, so since we can't dig up the concrete to put a concrete monument down, we talked to the township, we are willing to put down any, reasonable permanent monument. We talked about iron stakes, ultimately, we're willing to satisfy the requirement, just the concrete doesn't work.
Yes, normally what you'll see is like, it'll either be a rebar, piece of rebar, and there's actually caps that come with it, and they'll say the name of the surveyor, or drill holes, where basically a surveyor, and I've dealt with enough surveyors, they know that hole there with the little crow's feet next to it means something. So we will document where they're located physically out in the field. We're just gonna have to, I don't know if that's gonna be a waiver request, but we'll have to work with the engineer, the township engineer at the end to actually install them. But we will install them. Now we're into others. Number 7 concerns the fence. We are proposing to put a fence between us and the neighbor to the east. Per code, the highest we can put a fence is 6 feet. So the max height of the fence will be 6 feet. And that'll basically go along this property line, so that way the neighbor doesn't have to look at the parking lot.
And also for the trash enclosure.
Yes, and for the trash enclosure. 8 has to deal with delineating the landscape buffer. Again, there's existing vegetation up in here. That's where we would be proposing to install any new additional plantings. I know there's some existing trees over there that do need to come down. They're basically past their time, and I know the neighbor's worried about them actually falling on their property. So we're going to go through, clean out what we can. If there's anything salvageable, we will. If not, we'll install vegetation. But this is the area where the landscape buffer would be. And we can add notes to that effect on the plan, basically saying, you know, an arborist is required to document what trees need to go, and then whatever stays, and then we'll infill.
Is this an issue that has to go before the Shade Tree Commission, or is this too small for that?
I think there's only 2 trees, and if they're dead, they're dead, so I think we're
Gotcha.
okay. Well, I'm sure we'll get to that if we really need to, but I think we're gonna be okay. So that is 8. 9 has to do with these curb cuts up here. So right now there are 1, 2, 3 existing curb cuts on the Haverford Road. I'm gonna scan down one. So this is the northwest corner. So this is where the green evergreens are. If you don't mind playing Vanna. So basically this is one existing curb cut. This is the one farthest to the east. So that one exists, functions today. We're basically going to maintain that one. This is the one that I'm going to call the middle driveway. This one, again, exists, functions, it's used today. And then finally, I'm going to call this the western, or no, I think I got my directions right. Yeah. So basically, all 3 curb cuts exist. We're not proposing to modify them. We're not proposing to move them. We're just going to basically line up and use them to the best of our ability. So again, there's the curb cut up at the corner. And again, all the cars are out of the way so it can function. Here's the curb cut in the middle. Again, cars can function in and out. And then this is the curb cut up towards the east. And again, the curb cut's 36 foot wide. The drive aisle still 24, so we still meet the PennDOT requirements for in and out. And then this is just one massive curb cut. As you guys know, the curb sort of stops here, and then the asphalt just kind of rolls into the site. The nice thing with this is now by putting this parking here, and we're doing some striping, we're basically designating where the openings are for this large curb cut, which will hopefully control some of the traffic coming in and out of the site, because now you kind of separated between there and there.
So with the amendments that Mr. Powell is going to make, we believe that the PennDOT issue goes away because we're not changing any curb cuts, and I think that means that comment 10 goes away as well.
Yeah, so comment 9 was dealing with,
Getting a PennDOT permit.
yes, and then this curb cut does exist. Number 11 has to deal with the length of some of the parking stalls. Again, I went through, each one of these parking stalls is now definitely 9 foot wide by 18 foot long. They all fit. The handicaps are the 8 by 8s, but everything now is all 18 foot long. I can put as many dimensions as you want, but basically it's all drawn and you can accurately get in and out of everything. 12 has to deal with the retaining wall. So previously there was a call out for a retaining wall along this property line. I'm gonna go look at it. I don't know if it's needed to this level. I know what the owner's looking to do is sort of clean up this edge, because basically the vegetation has sort of overgrown the edge of asphalt. So we want to go in there and clean up some of the vegetation. I'm going to see if I can make this wall either disappear, or on the alternative, slide it down closer to the parking stalls. What that allows me to do, if the hill's this steep, and if I'm all the way back here, I've got that 4 foot wall. If I physically take the wall and slide it closer to the parking, which I do have room to do, it's going to shorten the height of the wall. That does 2 things. One, hopefully it gets me out of having to design it, because once I'm under 30 inches, I don't need to. The second thing is I don't have to disturb as much of that soil, because I don't know if you guys have ever installed one of those retaining walls. Once you get above 3 feet with those pretty EP Henry walls, you're required to put basically tie-back bracing. And what that is basically it's a 4-foot wide by however long piece of geotextile fabric that gets glued in and reburied. So even though the EP Henry blocks are about a foot, foot and a half wide, you have to excavate back about 4 or 5 feet to put the stone, the backfill, to do everything. So I think it's in everyone's best interest if I just spend about a good half hour out there and about 2 hours at my desk and make that wall either disappear or become shorter. At any rate, I've got no problem providing that. We can provide it either during the permit process for the building or, as a supplemental, but I'm more than likely going to make that wall disappear. And then sewer module. So the nice thing was I was called over to DEP, a lovely lady named Stephanie Rittenhouse. If you don't know, she's the one in charge at Norristown DEP for Haverford Town. Wonderful woman. I spoke to her. I explained to her what we're doing. Because it's a reverse subdivision, both one of these properties basically get a sewer bill and a water bill. So when we combine them, or the whole parcel, when we're done, will get one water bill and one sewer bill. The one nice thing is every sewer bill comes with an EDU. Who knows what an EDU is? You guys know what an EDU is, right? Okay, so right now I have 2 EDUs. 2 EDUs is about 500 gallons a day. When I combine it, I still have 2 EDUs. So even if there shouldn't be a capacity issue, long story short, I should be able to get an exemption, which again is an external agency. It's outside of this, but to get the sewer shouldn't be an issue. I spoke to her. She said, yeah, send up the green mailer, send up a narrative, and they should be fine. So, and we're not in RHM because we're so far this way. I did speak to Mike Galante, who's the sewer authority engineer down in Upper Darby Township. He knows we're coming if we need a capacity letter. But again, long story short, we can meet the requirements for the planning module exemption. And that was it. See, look, told you, short and easy. You guys have any questions? I know I kind of spoke a little faster than I'm supposed to, but
I do have a question.
but
I see that you went through great lengths to make the parking work.
yes.
Where are the entrances to the buildings,
So the entrances to the buildings, the main entrance is here,
right?
and then there's another entrance here.
Now, may I ask, how does a handicapped person get into that building?
So basically, to get into this building, they would roll across the street, come up onto here and into that main entrance.
Got it.
And then this is all flats, asphalt. So basically, they would come here, continue over and enter there.
So am I seeing correctly that the parking where the barriers are along the wall there, a handicapped person is going to maneuver through that area to get into that building? And does that 2-story building have an elevator?
No.
Okay. How does a handicapped person get up to the 2nd floor?
If the usable office space on the 2nd floor is under 3,000 square feet, elevator is not required.
Okay.
There is office space on the garage side, so if Jim needed to meet with someone in a wheelchair, he could use the garage side, or there is like an alcove in this area here, which is not small,
I do remember the architectural plan.
Yes. There will be meeting space. So the upstairs is just for office. It's just for employees. There will be a meeting space downstairs in some capacity that in the event a customer is ADA requirements.
It just seems a little cumbersome for somebody in a wheelchair to go from that area to the entrance.
Now again, I can take those handicap stalls and move them down along Carricung Road. I mean, if that makes, because again, those stalls are 9x9, those are 8x8. I can take that 3-pack and put it down there and line it right up. So I could basically go handicap, transfer aisle, handicap. And that makes you, in that way, they can wheel in and straight in, and they can wheel in and straight in. If that's something that the township would like, I got no problem moving those.
That's the first thing I saw when I looked at the plan, and I know that Carricung in the morning is very heavily traveled, so I don't know if that would be a good idea either.
again, we are willing to put them where you feel comfortable. Now, if I put them on Karakung, that's one less parking stall on trying to maneuver there because of the transfer aisle. So that might be beneficial. So then instead of having 5 cars moving in and out, you would have 4. And then I'm going to sound really horrible. The odds of 2 people needing ADA accessible spaces on a daily basis at the same time are probably slimmer than none, which means then I only have really, in essence, 2 people making that maneuver. So if you want us to move them there as we're talking, that makes a lot of sense to me. We can move them over there.
Just wanted to make it known that I was concerned about that.
I don't be concerned. Next time, those will move. We have no problem doing that.
Can't you just identify a handicap accessible route for those 2 spaces into each building?
I can, but
Okay. And if you need to put a curb cut in or a ramp or something like that in the existing sidewalk, you'll do that?
yes,
Okay.
yes. But again, I think looking at the discussion I just had in my head, we're going to move those down on so get them closer to the front doors.
As long as the route's accessible, that's
Yes,
fine.
yes.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments from the
Yeah,
commissioners?
I do.
I had a just quick question. You mentioned the landscape buffers, that
Yes.
was something that you could put on the plans. Is that currently on the plans?
Well, the location of them is here. What we need to do is I need to go out there and identify where some trees might need to be located.
I guess you had mentioned earlier that you would put a note on the plans regarding the landscape buffers or removal of dead vegetation or replacement with new vegetation?
Yes.
Something to that effect?
Yes.
So that is currently not on the plans?
Correct,
That is something that you will put on the plans?
correct.
Okay, all right. I would want to see that on the plans, please.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
A question or thought here. So you were talking about you might lower the retaining wall on the east side, or take it out or lower it. I guess it serves 2 functions, right? It helps the Jim Miller property get some parking spaces, and it also helps the adjacent property kind of keep their grade, right?
Correct. It's basically what's happening over time. The vegetation, everything have just kind of migrated down from the residential property down across his parking lot.
Gotcha.
So basically to clean that up, we're going to try to either grade it out or install some type of retaining wall to separate the 2.
So if whatever wall you're going to install is going to kind of maintain the adjacent property, it's not going to end up kind of sloughing off if you over steepen a slope or something like that?
That's the goal, because
Okay.
the next door neighbor's property, I mean, we're on the low side, so
Yeah,
everything's
it's higher
heading this way.
And also, I guess, just consider a lot of the vegetation, roots, et cetera, kind of act as like a mini reinforcement to some of the
Correct.
soil, so. But obviously, you probably want to avoid any reinforcement or underground
Yes,
stuff
my
as much as
goal is to
possible.
get it under the 30 inches, so
Yeah.
that way it's just a smaller gravity wall and I don't have to rip everything out.
Yep, yeah, there's some modular stuff you can throw in there too to make it work, and, yep. okay.
Lou, do you have any other questions or comments?
I'm curious, how old is the building, roughly?
I-
And where I'm going with it is simply, I just want to confirm that there are no environmental cleanup issues.
So-
It's a service station
I
there.
can't answer the first question, but the second question, he did have studies done before he purchased the property.
Angelo, do you have any questions or comments?
I have a question about the addition. The building looks like basically 2 pieces. It's a concrete block on the west end and brick on the back end. And the addition is only going over the brick portion of the building? Or is it going over the front portion too? Here's a picture of what I'm talking.
Yeah, he's gonna be, you didn't bring did you bring the architectural plans?
Actually, the board, the commission has
Yeah, basically the addition sort of, the dividing wall is somewhere around here, and then it's on this side. So it's on this side of the building.
Okay, so the garage bays won't have a second floor on top of them?
Correct, correct.
I did not bring the renderings of the,
That's okay.
but, yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, here we go. Mr. Miller is obviously in the roofing and siding business, so he will be cleaning up the appearance of the siding because He doesn't want to look like he doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
This is a little bit old. Yes, so,
It's kind of hard to tell.
it's essentially going over the, not, over the section.
What, if, it would be hard to add like a dotted line or something where the extent of the second floor addition is on the plan.
Yes, we can definitely, what I'll do is basically just draw a box over top, and it'll show that we're not crossing the setback lines and where the delineation is.
Perfect.
Would it be helpful?
No. Some of these parking spaces aren't ideal in comparison to some of the others. Would it be possible to identify certain spaces and employee spaces so that the ones that aren't ideal get used by the employees?
Yes.
And there's not a lot of in and out from those spaces. Okay.
I mean, the roofing business is not gonna have a lot of customers visiting, it's just offices, just employees.
Right. But
Maybe occasional.
the lower floor is like a showroom type of,
No, it's a warehouse.
oh, it's a warehouse, it's not a showroom?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, the architect, for some reason, put showroom on one of the drawings, and that's not accurate.
okay, all right.
It's a warehouse.
Yeah, are all the driveways two-way? You don't need directional arrows anywhere?
We will provide directional arrows basically in and out. Currently, we're going to, unless the engineer has any objections, is have them function as in and out as they are today. We don't have a problem if you want to make anything one directional, but at this point, I think the way this is cleaned up, everything meets with requirements, and line of sight shouldn't be an issue that we think we can function in and out.
Okay. And then finally, it might be a good idea if you can identify on the plan where those 8 internal spaces are. So we know when the building inspector goes out, he'll knows what areas are supposed to be parking spaces, which aren't going to be used for storage or something, you know?
Robert, do you have any other comments?
The only comment I had mentioned, that area on the first floor where the addition, is that going to be like a service trucks, or is it going to be a storage area?
Everything under the addition, essentially, so everything from back of here is going to be storage warehouse. There is, like, this area right in front of the door, you know, has a small alcove and staircase area.
Julia, do you have any questions or comments? Okay, thank you.
So tonight, we're requesting that the Planning Commission recommend approval. We do have 2 or 3 waivers we're requesting. One is that preliminary and final be done at the same time. The second is that we have a waiver from the stormwater study. Yeah, essentially, there's no change in the impervious at all, so the study wouldn't be fruitful, and it would be expensive. And then we have, we're requesting a waiver from the traffic study, which the amount of cars that come in and out of this property with regard to the office use are minimal, maybe 7 cars, and we're already taking away, you know, the garage use has gotten smaller. There's less employees at the garage, and so it's really not a significant change to roads that get thousands and thousands of vehicular trips a day. So we're requesting that those waivers be granted, and we appreciate your comments and your time.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Audience.
Oh, yes. Are there any comments from the audience?
Can we see a plan of what the furnish looks like? Roughly what they have planned to do?
I'd be happy to show them to you.
You know, like you have the picture, I was just wondering, like,
You can show them that one.
Could you tell us your name, please? You can come. John?
John Anthony. It's just
The garage
8 units
It-
or 5?
It's just office space on the top
Yeah,
that they're adding, and this is,
right,
this is the garage for,
garage now,
and then here is all going to be warehouse.
right. Okay, just curiosity.
Mr. Anthony, do you have any other questions or comments?
That's it. It's just curiosity as to what was getting done.
Mr. Ewald, could we have a look at that?
A little bit, it was out of date, but this is from the zoning application. Ultimately, this is the view from Haverford. Got three storage spaces that are currently under renovation. And
He's got to be mad at me. Sorry, I broke the rules. It's up behind you. Yeah. Yeah, so,
Everything about the service station going on, it's like a
correct. But basically, all of the facades will now match, so he's gonna stucco everything. The doors will be painted the same color. Everything's basically gonna be upgraded, so it'll look like a new building. And
And they're about to complete the first phase with the auto repair bays being renovated.
yeah.
And they're
And-
hoping to soon move into the second phase with the second floor.
And to hopefully, so this, what you're looking up here is actually the roof plan. So this is looking straight down. And as I discussed, these dotted lines are your setback lines. So as you can see, this is where the first floor extended over the line. This is where the new roof line cuts. And so this section of the building will be the second floor. And that's what it'll look like.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we recommend preliminary final approval for proposed development for JPM, Jim Miller, with the following conditions. Number one, that the remaining comments in the Township Engineers Review Letter of January 2nd, 2024 be addressed to the satisfaction of the township. Number two, that the interior parking spaces be identified on the plan. Number three, that spaces to be used by employees be identified by signage or some other means on the plan. Number four, if required, directional arrows should be added to the pavement. Number five, that the size or the outline of the second floor addition be added to the plan. Number six, that the handicap accessible routes be identified on the plan. And number seven, anchors be provided for the proposed concrete bumpers.
Gotcha. 8 notes on the landscape buffer. That's in there.
Anyone else want to add to that, or feel free?
Well, we did number 8, the landscape note.
Okay, why don't you say what, add out landscape notes to the plan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second. Oh, Rob.
Mr. Fiordimondo seconds. And we'll call a vote.
Mr. Channon,
In favor?
Ms. Dobbs,
Yes.
Mr. Welsh,
In favor.
Mr. Kabouzi,
Yes.
Mr. Fiordemondo,
Yes.
Mr. Montresor,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your time.
And thank you for an excellent presentation.
Yeah, and thank you for the materials. They were very helpful.
One thing that's, I assume is understood, that the revised plans will be given to the township engineer so he can look at them
Oh, yeah.
before they go to the Board of Commissioners.
Oh, definitely.
The next item on our agenda is, where's our agenda? February 8th. McGoldrick Electric, the zoning sketch and plan review at 83 South Eagle Road. Is there anyone here for McGoldrick Electric?
Gary, did they say they were coming in? They did? Did they give you a revised plan? No, well, there's nothing to talk about, really. Right? Okay.
Next item on the agenda is Design Properties LLC, Joseph Taggart, preliminary final subdivision land development plan at 225233 Hastings Avenue subdivision.
Right there with you. Yeah, Mr. Taggart couldn't make it, so he asked me to come over. I'm the owner of the
John,
property.
could you tell us your name and address,
Name is-
please?
John Anthony, 237 Hastings Avenue. I'm the owner of 233 Hastings Avenue also. Okay. He bought the house at 225 Hastings Avenue.
Excuse me, John, who's he?
Excuse me?
You said he bought the house. Who are you speaking for?
Joe Taggart, or whoever the firm is. Joe's the one I talked to. I didn't meet him until he was starting to work. But I'm a retired builder. I asked him, what was going on, and he said he's going to remodel the house. I thought he was going to tear it down. But he just said he's going to add on and all that, which is fine. And he's doing a nice job on it. But the question is that he has a 75-foot lot, and I have a 75-foot lot next door at 233. And what we want to do is I want to sell 25 feet of my 75 to him, to give him a 50-foot building lot when they're. If I was in better shape, I would have bought the house and built, but the property and went through this, but I'm not physically fit to do it.
John,
Okay, so he just told me that we had to go through zoning and all this, which I didn't know much of. I don't know what's happening. Excuse me?
Mr. Joe Taggart is not here tonight. Why is that?
He called me last night and said he's going, he'll be out of town. And he didn't say where he was going, just asked me if I could come and take his place tonight. He said he dropped all the papers off to you prior to the township building that were needed for the meeting. The copies, it was 13 copies or something, and plans and whatever.
John, you live at 237.
Angelo, did you have comments? You want to start?
Just want to clarify.
Sure.
You live at 237.
I live at 237.
Who lives at 233?
233 is vacant right now.
That's an empty house?
Excuse me?
233, no one lives at 233 right now?
Wait a minute. Get this a little louder.
I said, you live at 237.
Yes,
Do you own 233?
yes.
Okay, and that's 75 foot wide.
And that lot's part of 233,
Right. And then next door to that is 225.
225, yes.
And that's, who lives there? Mr. Taggart?
Taggart's built,
Okay.
yes,
All right, so Taggart's got 75 feet also.
yes.
Okay, so you're going to take 25 feet from each of your two lots and make one?
Make
Okay.
one lot.
I
that's
understand.
all.
So as far as your house itself, 237, that has nothing to do with development? Okay.
Now, when
Gotcha.
they came out to do the survey, the guy was doing the topographical and everything, and I said to him, what are you doing, with 237? He says, it's part of 230. I says, no. 237 was built in 1978, and it had its own deed made up and everything else. We went all through that, and we built the house. And that was, oh, okay. And then when I talked to the engineer, he said he checked it out in media and said, yes, you're correct. It's 237 has nothing to do with this at all, with the property.
Okay.
So it's just 233.
Okay. The problem you have is the garage on 233. Okay? The garage at the back. The garage in the backyard on 233
The garage there.
is too close to the property line. It's
So what-
supposed to be, it's too close to the rear property line.
No, it's about 8 feet, 10 feet off.
Your plan shows about 2 feet off.
The what is?
The plan shows the garage is about 2 feet from the rear property. Okay, and the township regulations say that the setback for a garage has to be 5 feet
5 feet from the property line, yes.
to the garage. And the township regulations also say that you can't subdivide a property if there's a building on the property that's non-conforming,
Oh, no.
okay?
You have the copy of the topographical from
Yep.
the engineer?
I do.
You notice that the garage is like, about 38 feet off of the property line from the 25 foot of 233 and 225.
I don't have a question what the side property line is, the rear property line. If you want to come up, I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, no problem. Here's 233, okay?
That's 233.
Right.
That's the house.
That's it. And the garage is back here.
And the garage is here.
You see how close it is to the fence?
Yeah,
See how close it is to the property line?
yeah.
That has to be 5 feet, and it's not 5 feet.
Charlie helped with that at the time.
It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's non-conforming. It doesn't matter what Charlie Held did 30 years ago. It doesn't work now. So your choices are to go to the zoning board and get a variance or to knock down the garage. That's your choices. And we can't approve a subdivision plan if there's a non-conformity on the plan.
So that's not part of the property that's being sold?
Yes, it is.
This is the part of.
You're selling, it's part of the 75 feet. You're subdividing 75 feet. So this whole 75 feet is part of the subdivision. And this property, this building is on that 75 feet. So you can't subdivide the 75 feet because of that nonconformity. That's the rules. I mean, don't look at me like I'm a bad guy. I mean,
Yeah, because this is one next door, this is, guys,
And I don't know if the carport presents a problem or not either.
Gave me the permit and everything, and I built it. I mean, it's legally.
I can't speak to what happened when that was done,
Yeah,
but right now, it's an issue for subdividing that property. Like I said, you have two choices, tear down the garage or go to the zoning board, but you got to do that first before we can approve this plan here. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the plan. The idea of what you're doing is fine. It's just that you got that little hiccup there you got to deal with.
We just gotta get zoning guys that come through and say.
Not us guys. It's a whole different board.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
You should bring somebody along that knows what they're talking about. Too. Not that you don't know what you're talking about. I'm just saying someone who's experienced with talking to the zoning board, because it's a little more formal than we are here. Okay.
Because, I mean, building wise, building has a wall over there.
Yeah, I know.
You can build on it as is and continue it is on the property line. You know, and you just should just keep yourself within the property line.
You can make your case to the zoning board and, you know, hopefully they'll sympathize with you.
Okay.
But unfortunately, we, as a planning commission, we can't approve something that's not it's what's called non-conforming. Okay? And, you know, it's a shame Mr. Taggart's not here to hear that, but hopefully you can relay that information to him.
Yeah, but
That's right.
that's on this list of the zoning. You're done. Because what I wanted to do is tear the house down. I wanted to keep the garage with this property,
Okay.
okay? And this driveway here, it comes up like this.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to take this house off and with the property line coming back through the garage, bring the property line around like the fence is doing, and come over 5 feet from the garage, put the, make the property line there. And that would have made this enough area as a building lot for another house. And
Okay.
then this, being this impervious cover, and with it, because my driveway goes back up to the two,
Mm-hmm.
this all being grass, we take care of that impervious cover, no problems.
We don't like curved lines like that on a neighborhood where everything is rectangular. But anyhow, you have to jump through this first hoop before you can get past us,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Okay.
Okay?
I'd also double check, so on the proposed plan, it shows that there's a shed that's going to remain on the lot. And I'm not sure if it's permitted to have an accessory structure on a lot that doesn't have a primary structure.
There's a shed on the property that he's not.
On the lot that you're proposing to create, the lot that you're proposing to create has this shed here. So that would, you would be proposing to create a lot that doesn't have a primary use or a primary structure, but that you would create a lot with a secondary, this accessory structure. I don't know if that's permitted to have an accessory structure on a lot that doesn't have a primary structure. Typically, you only allow accessory structures on lots that have a primary structure.
That's going to go with, when that gets, the property sold, that shed will be with the property.
I understand,
When the house gets built, it'll be a primary property.
but you're proposing to create the lot with the accessory structure already on it. I don't know if you, and it's, that would be a question for the zoning officer. I don't know, Gary, if you know.
The topic, I'm sorry, I was just talking to Dave, but yes, topic you were talking about, the shed can't be on a vacant lot, essentially. They would
Okay.
have to relocate it to one of the other lots.
Right, okay. So what we're saying is that if you wanted to create this lot, but leave the shed there, you're going to also get a variance for that, or you're going to have to remove or relocate that shed until you build a house on that lot. So it can't, the shed cannot stay there without the house there. So if you create a vacant lot, essentially, so you're creating a new lot that's vacant, doesn't have a house on it yet, you can't have the shed stay there. So you would either need to request a variance along with your variance for the garage setback, or remove the shed and then put it back on when you build the house.
Just take a forklift and move it next door.
Yeah, I mean, if you need a permit for that or anything, I'll leave that to the township to decide, but just to point that out to you, that shed is gonna pose a problem for you to create the lot.
Oh, that's something, things have changed so much since I've been retired for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
You see, I have problems.
That's, we're just pointing it out to you while you get going.
Changes and stuff, I'm not up with them.
Sure.
But you can pass these on to Mr. Taggart. You can pass these comments on to Mr. Taggart, who couldn't be here. And, great. Gary, do we need an extension?
Yes, at this point, we should. I was going to say, I should mention to the board as well, we did get an email from Mr. Taggart. He's aware he needed variances, but he hasn't put anything together yet. He's probably still figuring out how many he needs or what he needs. Again, we were kind of hoping he'd be here, but we wanted somebody here at least to get it before the planning commission, so you can at least take a look at it. But at this point, the fact that we missed the 2 meetings here, so to speak, you're looking at the third, you're not going to be able to get approval by the third because you're going to be still going through zoning hearing board. So I'll notify him as well, but if you could let him know, we would need an extension.
When is the, what's the date?
I think the actual date is April 13th, if I remember correctly. But if he's got to go through zoning hearing, he's going to miss that date.
But we don't have to act on the plan tonight.
Not tonight.
No, but maybe next month, if we don't get an extension, we may have to act on it.
Correct, but I don't think, yes, but if he's going to go to, if we get the extension, he goes to zoning hearing board, you probably won't see it even next month. It'll
No,
probably.
I understand, yeah.
I don't think we can comment off the record. This is actually a hearing, a public hearing.
And the building lines are supposed to be by code, I know, by 25 feet.
And
That's something you can call the township and ask the zoning officer about that, or the building inspector, okay?
They extended the front of the house
Yeah.
was a porch, and they extended that out. It's not even from here to the wall,
Wow.
from the sidewalk.
Yeah, you can call the township and they can explain to you what's going on there,
Okay.
okay? But we don't deal with those types of
Yeah.
building permit plans, you know, so we don't know about all of them. All right,
thank you.
thanks for coming in.
All right, thank you very much.
Yep, have a good one.
The next item on our agenda is a proposed ordinance amendment to Chapter 41-1 and 47-5. I will be recusing myself from that, disqualifying myself from participating in that matter. So I will step down for the discussion and defer to my vice chair.
Okay. So, as David introduced, this is the ordinance amendment, proposed ordinance amendment for mechanical amusement devices, games of skill. We have, let's see, definition for convenience store, definition for e-liquids, electronic cigarettes, hookah bars, indoor recreation facilities. And then we have, so some of the ordinance amendments are under Chapter 182. Some of them are under Chapter 47. Most of them look like Chapter 182, which is our zoning ordinance. Do we know what Chapter 47 is offhand?
Amusement.
Chapter 47? Gary, what's chapter?
Yeah, they have it listed as amusement devices.
Amusement devices. Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. Chapter 47 is amusement devices, Chapter 182 is the zoning ordinance. So we have a couple different changes that would impact a couple of different sections within those two ordinance chapters. And I don't believe we were provided a particular reasoning. However, well, this just summarizes all of the different. Yeah, this
The
just.
whereas clause is.
Yeah, I can give it.
Do you have an explanation as to? Okay, please.
All right, the reason for this ordinance change, from my understanding, is that the township recently received another application for a vape shop, and that would be the 6th one in the township. So the commissioners feel that, that's more enough to serve the needs of residents of Haverford Township, I guess. And there are no specific instructions or regulations regarding vape shops. So the commissioners felt that it was important for the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of the township that we put in some controls. And basically, what they're suggesting with this ordinance change is that the vape shops be limited to areas that are zone C5. And in particular, that would be Manoa Shopping Center, the shopping center on Westchester Pike where the Superfresh used to be, and also the Quarry Center. So they would be the only locations where you could physically put in one of these vape shops. In addition, there's a restriction that no vape shop could be located within 1,000 feet of a property zoned institutional, which is primarily your schools, churches, and hospitals, things like that. And then the final restriction is individually, the vape shops have to be at least 1,000 feet apart. So with those restrictions in place, the township feels that they pretty much protected themselves from overdevelopment as far as these types of uses. How's that sound?
That's a wonderful explanation. Thank you very much. Okay. All right, so with that introduction and reasoning as to why the ordinance amendment is up for discussion, I will take comment from the Planning Commission. Julia, would you like to start?
I guess, I agree with everything that they're attempting to do here. I have 2 young children that are in elementary school, but I do think that this is something that needed to be done. And I know that with the new one that was proposed, I've actually heard from a couple of other parents who were frustrated and unhappy about it, who were just commenting in general that it was going in again. So yeah, I guess my only question is if we could make the square feet greater than 1,000 feet, that would be better. But I don't know if there was like a reasoning for that number.
You mean separation distance from institutional, the 1,000?
Yeah, separation distance from institutional.
Okay.
Because I think that there's a lot of kids who walk home from the middle school and the high school, and their paths kind of vary and wander, so.
My understanding from just other general potentially nuisance uses, particularly on the impact of children, 1,000 feet does tend to be pretty typical of a separation distance from things like schools and churches.
Yeah, and that's what I kind of figured, because I think I've heard it other places for other things, but yeah. Just thought I'd ask for more since it's.
We are a very walkable community, so certainly you're going to have walking paths that take you past 1,000 feet.
Yeah, you definitely do, so.
Okay, thank you. David? Or, I'm sorry, Rob.
And for the passing of
Okay, thank you. Angela?
Yeah, I had a bunch of editorial comments that I'm just going to pass on to Gary, and he can share them. But there are 2 things that I do want to say. If you turn to page 6, you'll see a definition for convenience store. And like the 8th line down, it says, 10% of its retail floor area or display area dedicated to or which maintains 20% or more of its total merchandise. I think that more should be less. And the reason I say that is because It's the definition for, I don't know, for vape shop, I think. It uses 20% or more. So basically, you're saying that convenience store can't have more than 10%, has to have less than 10% of its floor area devoted to tobacco and tobacco uses, or 20% or less of its total merchandise. You don't want to say 20% or more, because then they could put everything in the back storage room and only have 10% floor space. So they're trying to limit how much a convenience store can have, so that more should be less. And then the other thing is, it's nice they have 1,000-foot restriction from institutional uses, but I think there should be 1,000-foot restriction from playground, which covered under recreation and open space, I think. I would think that'd be more important than being 1,000 feet from a church.
Okay,
So,
excellent suggestions, thank you. Down here, Steve.
I kind of echoed the general support for the ordinance. I think the 1,000-foot kind of comes into play if it's a common number, but a lot of where the current stores are located, the 1,000 feet tends to overlap themselves, so that kind of separates the potential for other places opening up. Yeah, I didn't have a lot of other questions associated with it, just generally in favor of it.
Thank you. First, I want to make the observation, I haven't fact-checked this, but my impression is that one or more surrounding municipalities have adopted something of this nature, and that may have precipitated the pop-up of a number of these places in a short period of time, so it underscores the need to take some action now. I'm someone who processes slowly and is always looking for the supporting rationale, so it would have been better in my mind had there been a supporting memo that explained things like, is this the standard kind of ordinance that's used for this situation, or is this cutting edge? Is this, or has someone vetted all of these definitions as workable, whether it be from an accounting standpoint? For example, there's a percentage of merchandise. What's merchandise? And so forth. For all those things, to me, are the tail wagging the dog, in the sense of this is a good faith attempt, it seems to me, to get at the issue and sketch it out in a reasonable way. So I support it.
Thank you. Everyone has made some good points. Maybe bouncing off of Angelo's, we have here, so significant tobacco retailer in the definitions. It does distinguish total merchandise, whether on display or in stock, which isn't the same language used in the convenience store. It just says of its merchandise. So if the intent is to be regulating both the on-display merchandise and the in-stock merchandise, maybe we have consistent language for that. I do also question, as somebody who is a zoning officer myself, how a zoning officer in Haverford would actually then regulate that percentage, because that would require you to actually go in and physically inspect and do some sort of inventory. So I applaud the effort and the intent behind it. I do question the actual ability of the zoning officer, codes enforcement officer, to execute the regulations in a reasonable manner. So if there is perhaps a different way, a better way perhaps of somehow writing this, because there's a lot of really well-intended zoning ordinances and zoning definitions that become really, really challenging for a human being to actually enforce. So I do just kind of question the ability of enforcement of the percentages of the merchandise as a regulatory kind of rule. Not to say that it shouldn't go in, but just expressing some concern over it. But otherwise, no, I don't have much to add to other people. I do support the limitation, given that it's based on time and place, to protect kids from undue influences of some of these potentially harmful substances. I'm generally not in favor of limiting businesses because we're feeling like we're inundated with things like, nail salons or hair salons or any particular type of business that often gets called out. But I think that the approach to this in providing a specific zoning district where it is most applicable, and then providing limiting distances from particularly susceptible uses such as institutional. I do second Angelo's recommendation for the Parks and Recreation, the playground areas. So I think that is a reasonable use of zoning enforcement to regulate these particular uses. So I am in favor of the ordinance amendment. Any other board comments? Commissioners? Okay. Anyone from the public would like to make a public comment? Yes, sir. Your name and address, please, for the record.
Michael Lee, 304 Fairlamb Avenue.
I'm sorry, can you say that at the microphone?
Michael Lee, 304 Fairlamb Avenue. When I looked at this ordinance, I had no idea what it meant, so I went to internet and tried to look things up. And I agree with your comments about having moms and parents are concerned about these various things. My question is, though, how about the parents who live near Manoa Shopping Center? And what we're doing is we're taking something that appears to be undesirable in the rest of the township and just throwing it in one central area. That seems unfair to those parents and those families. And I'm particularly concerned that when I was at the working group meeting at the commissioners on Monday, they said that they were going to have the public hearing on this at 6:30 before the working group meeting on March 4th. So my question is, how are the people who are going to be impacted by this, the people who live near Manoa Shopping Center, how are they going to respond to this? They're not going to know about it. So it seems like there's an inadequate public comment, there's an inadequate notification of the public, and there's an inadequate rationale as to why parents should be concerned about this. So, they're my comments.
Thank you very much. Anyone else from the public? Oh, yeah, Gary, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to mention a couple things. Just for the record, that sixth shop has already opened up about 2 weeks ago. And as far as the locations, these shops are already there, so it's not like they're centralizing them in that C5, they are there.
Well, what they're saying is we're going to, all future things will be in C5.
Correct.
So that means that everybody, it's not just Manoa Shopping Center, as you said, it's down by Lowe's and Giant.
No, I got you.
And in my opinion, the public notification in the township stinks. I mean, we knew nothing about the comprehensive plan. That essentially just made more density along Eagle Road, Haverford Road, and Darby Road is how I read it. Nobody's talking at all about the proposed billboards that the commissioners are talking about. We had the municipal exemption last week. And why does the township get the right to just ignore zoning rules? So there's this real lack of communication with residents. I feel like I'm kept in the dark.
Noted. Just two other things, though. That the 1,000-foot offset, just so you know, that's the same offset that's used for marijuana facilities. So if you were looking to make it any larger, you'd be exceeding the marijuana criteria. So that's kind of a standard rule. And essentially, you all probably know, this code isn't going to change the 6 that are there now. They're there, they'll be non-conforming until they happen to move out. So
Right.
You're kind of stuck with 6 at the moment. I think this would potentially limit another one coming in until one actually leaves. I think that's the purpose.
Okay, thanks, Gary. Yes, please.
Good evening. My name is Stacy Maddox. I reside at 38 East Turnbull Avenue in Havertown. I just wanted to ask, forgive me, I'm kind of jumping in. I will be very frank, I have not reviewed your proposed ordinance. I just wanted to ask, based on the information you shared with us this evening, is there any possibility that in conjunction with the 1,000-foot rule and the locations where you're proposing that they're limited to, that it could also be limited in quantity, such as one in each of those locations? I understand that it's sort of grandfathered in, but you could basically, what you're saying is you could basically have 2 in the Quarry Center, or 2 or 3 in Manoa Shopping Center.
So if I'm reading the ordinance correctly, there's also a limitation on a separation distance between the actual stores themselves. So if there's a store in a shopping center and there's, what did you say the setback was for the?
The stores have to be 1,000 feet apart.
So the stores
Okay.
themselves have to be
Thank
1,000
you.
feet. So then essentially it would then make it unlikely that you would have 2 shops in the same shopping center. They would have to somehow be 1,000 feet apart. So I don't know how long the Manoa Shopping Center is particularly, but if one is at one end and it's 1,000 feet to the last store at the other end, maybe you could fit 2, but typically that separation. So it's a separation from both the institutional uses, but then separation between the stores themselves.
Okay, so, and thank you so much for the clarification. My other question is, with regard to the Manoa Shopping Center, is that also defined where, I believe that there's one now near, forgive me, like Smoothie King, there's one there, and there's kind of one right past what I would refer to as Manoa Shopping Center. So I'm assuming that neither of those locations is currently referred to as Manoa Shopping Center per se.
So, so as Gary was just mentioning, right now, the ordinance does not prohibit these types of shops from going in. So as long as they fall under whatever the retail use is, so if a retail use is permitted, these particular types of convenience stores and vape shops are permitted to go in just as a retail use. So we don't have a specific definition for them, which is why this ordinance is being proposed to cover that. What that means, though, is that all of those shops that got use approvals as a retail store, so there's various places outside of the C5 zoning district that allows retail shops. So all of the stores that have gone in under the current use approvals are permitted to remain as is. With the passage of this ordinance amendment, it will mean that those stores, from a use perspective, are considered non-conforming. So they are grandfathered in, essentially, so they're considered a legal non-conforming use and are permitted to remain in operation as long as they are operational. But if that business closes or they relocate, then they abandon that protected status as a non-conforming, and then they would not be permitted to go back into that particular location unless that location meets the criteria of the ordinance, so in the C5 district and the other setbacks it requires.
Perfect. I just wanted to clarify, like, does Manoa Shopping Center include those other areas where we could potentially get a third one in the actual shopping center? It sounds like that's not the case. The other ones are just grandfathered in. Thank you so very much. I appreciate the
You're
clarity.
welcome. Thank you so much for your questions.
There's one thing I forgot to mention. This ordinance proposes that any future vape use, or whatever they call it, would require a special conditional use hearing. So that's a special hearing that the Board of Commissioners would convene and hear testimony from the applicant as to why they want to put their facility in a certain location, and the commissioners have the right to attach special conditions for that approval, and also gives the residents in the area, anyone in the township, the right to present other information in opposition of that application. So it's a much formal approval process than what we usually deal with here as far as subdivisions and land developments. And that hearing is advertised, duly advertised in local newspapers, I'm sure on the township's website, and it's a special hearing just for that individual item.
And conditional uses are posted, the property itself is also physically posted. So I'm sorry, for the conditional use hearings, the property itself is also physically posted, so if you were to pass by and see the notice, that's another way that you can get that information. But we do understand your frustration with the dissemination of information that, you know, we'll pass that information on to the township. We're just volunteers here, so. But certainly it's important for the township to hear those comments from our residents, so thank you.
The other thing, as a resident.
I'm sorry, if you have comments, please use the mic.
I apologize. Another thing, as a resident, I mean, I see about skill games, whatever. I know that Governor Shapiro had last month, was trying to tax these. He's doing some type of program he wants. So I know there's a big push on that. There's an awful lot of stuff in that ordinance that I have no idea what it is. I mean, it's line after line of information. And I appreciate what you guys said about the vape shops. I understand that. And, you know, I learned about hookah bars, which I didn't know anything about. But it's just very confusing for a resident. We really do need to know exactly why something's being done, so thank you. And we need to know why all these things are included. It's just difficult, that's all. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other comments from the public? Any additional comments or questions from the board? Okay. Would anybody like to make a recommendation on this ordinance amendment?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we recommend the Board of Commissioners to approve township ordinance regarding vape shops with the following recommendations or suggestions: that a 1,000-foot buffer be imposed adjacent to or from any recreation and open space area, and that the definition on page 6 for convenience store be changed to 20% or less of its total merchandise as opposed to 20% or more of its total merchandise. And also, it's the Planning Commission's opinion that the proposed ordinance is consistent with the township's comprehensive plan.
Okay. Mr. Kuzi has made a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Julia seconds. Should we do a roll call? Or are we unanimous?
Before we go there.
Oh, sorry.
I believe a technical correction. Angela, were you referring to the bottom of page 5?
Mine came out on page 6.
Oh, okay, whatever. I'll second.
Well, the second's already been made. We're doing.
Sorry.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And David abstains. All right, that should be it. Thank you. I don't want to usurp David's agenda. Next agenda item.
Passing the baton back.
Yes.
The next agenda item, I believe, is the minutes. Review of minutes of January 11. Any comments on the minutes? Is there a motion regarding the minutes? I'll move. I move we approve. Oh, Lou got it in? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved. I move that we adjourn. There's no more on the agenda unless anybody has comments or good news.
Comment?
Forgive me terribly.
Oh, that's okay.
I actually had some comments regarding 83 South Eagle Road. And I understand that it was tabled for this evening because the applicant was not present. So is it in my best interest to come back when it is going to be reviewed, it seems?
Yes.
That would make sense.
I just wanted to make sure. That's why I waited.
Yeah, there'll be an opportunity to.
They have a few hurdles to jump through before they get past this board. There's some zoning issues that they have to resolve and things like that. So
Okay.
they're going to be tied up for a few months at least.
Okay, all right. Thank you. I very much appreciate it.
Check the township website for the zoning board's agendas. Because they do have to, and also the board of commissioners, because there is zoning changes involved also.
Do you anticipate then, based on earlier meetings you've had with other applicants, that it's going to go through zoning before it comes to you, or vice versa?
Yeah, we can't approve a plan that doesn't comply with zoning. So it has to go through zoning first. But first, they have to get a zoning changed to allow what they want to do to begin with.
Okay, so it might be back and forth. Might be
and the
zoning, then here, then back to
The
zoning.
zoning change is approved by the board of commissioners,
Okay.
but the variances are approved by the zoning board.
My concerns really, I'm on the Historical Commission with Julia, and my concerns relate to historical-related considerations. So forgive me for asking you in this venue, but would it be more appropriate for me to present my concerns at zoning or here?
You can present them both places.
Okay,
Yeah, there's no reason.
okay. Just keep an eye to when they're going to be on the agenda. Okay.
I did briefly ask last time they were here, and they cited that the condition of the building doesn't lend itself to being preserved. It would be too costly to try to reuse the historic portion and remove the 70s addition. So I don't know, as a zoning officer, is there anything that we need, that you guys would need if you wanted to are you concerned about documenting it before demolition?
Right, I would like to at least have the opportunity to do that, if that
Yeah.
was the path that was chosen. There's also, I can address this at a later time, but the properties along that corridor typically were large, single-family residences back in their original time. That particular property still has its original stone wall at the curbside, and I was going to ask if consideration could be made to retain that, even if the residence was lost, and I was going to ask for the Historical Commission to have the opportunity to document that property if it was determined that they were unable to work it into their plan.
Yeah. As a zoning officer, do you have like a procedure that they would follow to be able to get in to document it before a demolition permit's pulled? Because sometimes that happens before properties come before us.
Yeah, we just have to deal with the owner on that if you want to go down that road. And I'm not sure, I don't remember that being a historic property. The ones on Hastings?
It's actually, no, we're talking about the
Oh,
one on
Eagle. Okay,
83
I'm
South
sorry.
Eagle
Gotcha.
Road. That's
Okay.
actually on the Historical Commission's windshield survey. It's not
gotcha.
currently on the survey, but it is proposed to be added, so.
Oh, because I believe the way the ordinance works is that if the property is listed on the township's register of historic places or our list of, then it would fall under certain protections where there might be some sort of requirement for documentation prior to demolition. But if it's not on that list, I don't believe that it is afforded that pause.
That's why I'm requesting it. The
That's
Delaware
correct.
County
Yeah,
Planning
if it shows up
Department.
as historic, then we essentially
Then you
make
essentially,
them apply to the historic commission. They would
right,
have
so it's
to
like
go to
30
that.
days prior to a demolition permit to allow the historical commission to come and document the historical resources.
We're asking for consideration to be made for that, even though it's not actively on the survey. This is also supported by the Delaware County Planning Department.
I would suggest then to come to all of the meetings where this project is being proposed and, although it's not on the list yet, it has a little bit more weight, the fact that it has been identified and is being requested for inclusion.
Yeah.
So from a legal perspective, it is not currently afforded those protections, but that could be potentially something that the zoning hearing board may consider and include in whatever approval. So the zoning hearing board has a pretty wide jurisdiction to provide certain conditions if approved. So if an approval is given, they can apply conditions of approval. So I'm sure that they would be interested in hearing that recommendation.
Thank you.
And at the very least, you can request from the zoning hearing board, express your interest and maybe request that historical analysis prior to demolition,
Thank
something
you.
like that. So there's an avenue for those discussions.
Thank you. I just wasn't sure like where the best place was to start, and thanks to Julia, I knew of this meeting, so it's at least a start. So I tremendously appreciate all your time.
And just for your information, the zoning hearing board meets on the first and third Thursdays of the month.
Okay,
So they are not on for the first Thursday of March. At this point, I don't expect them to be on the third one either, because unless they get us something in the next 4 or 5 days.
okay,
So it might be April,
okay.
the first Thursday in April at the earliest, but we will, like I said, that we will have to contact them and make sure, they get this thing moving. Otherwise, we'll need extensions from them as well.
Julia, my recollection is they said they couldn't tear down they need to tear down the building, but they were going to try to preserve stained glass windows. Was that this property?
Yeah, they were also willing to remove the stained glass windows and try to preserve,
Okay.
salvage basically. So it would be more of a salvage effort than any kind of actual preservation. But I'm sure you would still want to document it intact before that.
Right, we would like that opportunity. I know that we worked in conjunction with the Delaware County Planning Department. I assume, I guess, it must have related to zoning, where they gave us that opportunity to do a property, I believe it was on Fairview, with a historic, a home that was not on our survey, but was still historic and had a barn, which we have very few barns left in the township. So they did give us that opportunity, the property owner. So I just kind of was pursuing consideration this evening, but I will follow the other avenues you recommend, and I appreciate tremendously your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, we have a motion to adjourn that's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you all. Thanks to the public who came.